On the morning of July 26, 2023, the sleepy town of Port Orange, Florida, was thrust into chaos. What began as a simple text message quickly escalated into a full-blown emergency, with local law enforcement working around the clock to find a kidnapper who, as it turns out, didn't exist. The story begins with a text sent by an 11-year-old girl, reporting that her friend had been abducted by a man with a gun in a white van. Within moments, the town was gripped by panic. Emergency responders flooded the streets, helicopters scanned the skies, and the police launched an all-out search for a criminal who wasn't even there.
Back to Sidebar here on Law and Crime. I'm Anjanette Levy. This incident happened on Wednesday morning in Volusia County. The sheriff says the girl texted 911 and claimed her friend had been kidnapped at gunpoint.
The text created an illusion so convincing that it set off a chain reaction, one that ultimately led to the full mobilization of law enforcement and the involvement of the entire community. The sense of urgency, mixed with fear, was palpable across the city. As news of the apparent kidnapping spread like wildfire, citizens felt an overwhelming need to stay alert, uncertain about where danger could strike next. Parents were terrified for their children's safety, schools placed their campuses under lockdown, and the otherwise quiet town was transformed into a scene of anxious anticipation. The incident quickly became more than just a prank. It became a wake-up call for the entire nation. The situation was made all the more surreal because of how a small action, a single text message, set off a chain of events that disrupted not just the lives of a few people, but the entire community. The ramifications of such an action reached far beyond the town of Port Orange, resonating with communities across the nation that are grappling with similar issues related to social media-driven pranks. This hoax forced many to reconsider how quickly fear and confusion can spread in an age of instant communication, where a simple text message can provoke a response of mass hysteria.
So there was a text message from someone saying they were behind a car. Their friend was kidnapped from a Chick-fil-A in Palm Coast, and they were on the interstate behind the car.
Everything on your phone is telling me that you made a phone call 911.
But I didn't talk.
Because you did something stupid.
A quiet morning turned chaotic. The sun had barely risen over Port Orange on July 26, 2023, when the first 911 call came in. At 9:45 a.m., a text message pinged through to emergency services. It read, "My friend has been kidnapped. There is a man with a gun, and they are in a white van." This was not a typical emergency. Unlike phone calls, which allow for real-time interaction, the text-based nature of the communication presented its own challenges. There was no voice, no direct information, and no immediate way to track or assess the validity of the claim. Yet the urgency in the message sent law enforcement into immediate action. In the world of emergency response, protocol demands action, and law enforcement followed it to the letter. Officers began scouring the town, helicopters were deployed to search the skies, and emergency teams were dispatched to assess every street. A major search operation ensued, involving roadblocks and inquiries at local businesses in the hope of spotting the elusive white van. The police had no choice but to assume the worst. They had to act as though the kidnapping was real, even as the uncertainty of the situation loomed larger with every passing minute. In this whirlwind of response, the line between a real threat and a false alarm had already been blurred. The deployment of resources was swift and extensive, with police officers coordinating efforts to ensure the public remained safe. Officers, investigators, and emergency medical personnel worked under the pressure of time, knowing that in such critical situations, every minute counts. The response was not just about finding the suspect. It was about ensuring that the public believed in their safety while they conducted an extensive search. But as time dragged on with no substantial findings, law enforcement began to fear that a more dangerous consequence loomed. What if this was more than a prank? What if there was truly a criminal mastermind lurking within their community? A growing suspicion. As the search continued, certain details began to raise red flags for the investigating officers. While the urgency of the call was apparent, the specifics seemed somewhat off. No one had witnessed the kidnapping, and the description of the white van was vague. The authorities quickly realized that the text message had not been accompanied by any tangible leads, no license plate numbers, no specific street names, no hints of where the kidnapping might have occurred. It wasn't as if they could just follow the trail left behind by the suspect, and yet, the urgency of the initial message made it impossible to ignore. The police also discovered that the girl's claim about a gunman wasn't corroborated by anyone else in the area. No witnesses had reported seeing a man with a gun, and there were no signs of a struggle at the scene of the supposed abduction.
The 11-year-old girl in this police body cam video is in a whole lot of trouble. She made a fake phone call to 911 saying her friend had been kidnapped. She later told cops she thought it would be funny. Well, they didn't laugh, admonishing her to never do this again. Amber Cagliano reports.
Suspicion began to mount. Could this be a hoax? Still, no one dared entertain that idea openly. They continued searching for clues, desperately trying to piece together the puzzle. With every passing hour, the pressure mounted. The fear of being caught flat-footed, of dismissing a real threat, kept everyone on edge. Even with so little evidence, the police were bound by duty to keep investigating as though it were a real kidnapping, and so the search continued. As hours passed, officers' concerns grew that their massive efforts to locate a non-existent threat might lead to a tragic misallocation of resources, preventing them from addressing more pressing, genuine emergencies. The public's fear also became a significant factor. How long could the authorities justify their aggressive search, knowing that time was running out, and that every passing moment fed into the growing panic in the community? The deepening suspicion among law enforcement was not just about the legitimacy of the claim, but also the overwhelming feeling that the town was being played. The growing realization that the call might have been fabricated was hard to stomach, but the mystery around it made it all the more difficult to dismiss. The role of social media. Behind the 11-year-old girl's decision to send the false report lies a deeper societal issue: the influence of social media and the growing trend of prank culture. Platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok have turned pranks into a mainstream form of entertainment. Creators often post elaborate hoaxes for the sole purpose of gaining attention, likes, and shares. But in recent years, some of these pranks have taken a darker turn, with increasingly dangerous or disruptive actions. There are countless examples of so-called pranksters pushing boundaries, with some taking things too far by involving unsuspecting bystanders or even law enforcement. For many young people, the line between reality and digital performance is becoming blurred. Social media rewards audacious behavior, and the more outrageous the prank, the greater the potential for viral success. This constant craving for viral fame can lead some to create dangerous scenarios that push the limits of good judgment. The young girl in Port Orange may not have understood the weight of her actions, but in her mind, it may have seemed like a harmless stunt. However, as many influencers and creators will tell you, what begins as an innocent video can quickly spiral out of control. The girl's actions were an unfortunate but typical product of the growing pressure among young people to engage in these viral trends. What she didn't grasp was the gravity of the situation she had created and the long-term impact it would have on her community. The incident is not an isolated one. It is part of a much larger issue in which young people, often encouraged by influencers, push boundaries to achieve instant recognition online. However, this case exemplifies how such behavior in the real world can cause serious harm, not just to the community, but to the individuals involved as well. It serves as a stark warning of how quickly the line between just a prank and a dangerous event can blur. The twists and turns. But why did she do it? What motivated an 11-year-old to fabricate such a serious emergency? The investigators began to ask these questions as they dug deeper into the girl's life. The search for an answer didn't just focus on the incident itself, but on the broader psychological factors at play. Was it an attention-seeking stunt, a desperate cry for help, or was it simply an unfortunate accident, an impulsive decision by a child who didn't fully comprehend the consequences of her actions? As they pieced together the girl's behavior and social circles, a chilling possibility emerged. She had been watching prank videos on social media, videos that involved staged emergency situations, some of which even mimicked kidnappings or similar high-stakes scenarios. These online pranks often feature dramatic scenarios that are designed to shock viewers, creating an illusion of danger for the sake of entertainment. But there was another layer to the story. It came to light that the girl had been encouraged by a friend or peer to make the false report. This revelation pointed to the darker side of childhood behavior, the susceptibility to peer pressure.
I'm telling you this right now, you're going to take this as a lesson at 11 years old that if you do something stupid in the future, you're going to enjoy those.
The young girl had been influenced to create a sense of urgency for reasons that seemed trivial at the time, but were damaging in ways that could not be undone. The question now is whether her actions were truly hers alone, or whether external pressures, coupled with a warped understanding of what constituted a good prank, had led her to commit such a reckless act. There was also the possibility that the girl, influenced by a need for attention, felt emboldened by the ease of making a false claim. In a world where digital platforms reward dramatic stunts, it's easy to see how a young person might seek a form of recognition, even if it is based on a fabricated event. The ability to generate a story that grabs attention can be an enticing draw for those looking to be seen or heard in a world that often feels anonymous and disconnected. In this context, the girl's actions were perhaps a reflection of broader societal trends that prioritize spectacle over truth. A community in crisis. The emotional fallout from the hoax was not confined to the police and the girl's family. It extended to the entire community. In the wake of the chaotic search, residents of Port Orange were left grappling with the consequences of a false alarm that endangered the well-being of everyone involved. Parents, already on edge about the safety of their children, now faced an additional burden. They couldn't trust their own community's safety nets. For many, this event eroded their confidence in the very institutions they relied on. What made the situation even more complex was the fact that this wasn't an isolated incident. The rise of social media has created a world where the line between reality and fiction is increasingly difficult to discern. In a community like Port Orange, where safety had always been a hallmark, the repercussions of a false alarm weren't just logistical, they were emotional. People began questioning how safe they truly were, not just from the potential threat of violence, but from the damage that could be caused by a lie, even one that seemed small or insignificant. The idea that such a prank could lead to such a dramatic response only fueled the anxiety. The emotional toll of the situation stretched even further. Beyond the immediate emotional distress caused by the event, there was a lingering feeling of vulnerability in the town. People began to second-guess the actions of their neighbors, their children, and even themselves. Trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild, and many residents found themselves wondering whether their community was truly as safe and reliable as they once thought. This psychological impact went beyond the physical search and echoed in the families who had lived in peace for years, now questioning the very fabric of their lives. A young girl's path to consequences. As the events unfolded, the question of legal consequences became inevitable. The 11-year-old's actions were no longer just a harmless mistake. They had escalated into a criminal act. Making a false report to law enforcement is a serious offense in Florida, and such pranks come with heavy penalties. The legal system is designed to ensure that children are held accountable for their actions, but it also emphasizes rehabilitation rather than punishment for minors.
Let's go on voicemail. It says, RP confirming they are in a blue Jeep. Victim is in a white van. They can see they are being restrained through the windows. At the turnaround?
In Florida, false reports to law enforcement are treated with the utmost seriousness. Not only do they waste valuable public resources, but they also put the community in jeopardy by creating unnecessary fear and panic. The girl's age, however, could potentially alter the course of her legal proceedings. Juvenile courts tend to focus more on corrective measures, such as counseling or community service, than on punitive measures, but the seriousness of this hoax meant that there would be consequences. The question became whether these consequences would be enough to deter other young people from attempting similar pranks. The legal system's approach to minors involved in such pranks has evolved over time, taking into account not only the severity of the act, but also the age and psychological development of the offender. In this case, while a harsh punishment might seem warranted, experts agree that rehabilitation, helping the young girl understand the consequences of her actions and the harm caused, would likely be a more effective deterrent for future behavior. The justice system must carefully navigate between holding the child accountable and providing an opportunity for growth, which can be an incredibly delicate balance. How a hoax reverberates through a community. The fallout from the hoax was felt throughout the Port Orange community. A sense of betrayal washed over residents, and the once safe environment seemed to have shifted in the wake of the false alarm.
Yeah, and they did not and do not find this funny. This morning, she's waking up here at the Volusia County Juvenile Detention Center. As you mentioned, she was handcuffed, brought here because of this whole situation. The deputies worked up and down I-95 yesterday trying to find what they believed was a kidnapping victim.
For many, the most shocking part of the entire ordeal wasn't the prank itself, but the fact that someone so young had triggered such a dramatic response from the community. Parents now found themselves questioning the reliability of not only their children's online interactions, but also their own safety. What had once been a quiet suburban area was now marked by a deep, unsettling realization. The fabric of trust had been torn. No longer could they be certain that the next call for help was real. The tragedy of this hoax was not just in the wasted resources, but in the trust that was shattered. The very concept of safety, the unspoken understanding that emergency services will respond with the utmost urgency when lives are at risk, was compromised. The ripple effect extended to public agencies as well. Local law enforcement and emergency services had to deal with the aftermath of the false report, including scrutinizing their own systems and questioning how they could avoid a similar situation in the future. It also forced the community to address how such incidents could be mitigated, prompting local leaders to advocate for better communication, education, and awareness around the consequences of hoaxes. In some ways, this event forced a collective reckoning for Port Orange, as the community came to grips with the broader implications of digital pranks and their ability to disrupt public life. Legal precedents. As the case moved through the legal system, experts debated the potential for the incident to set a new legal precedent. False reports, especially those involving emergency services, can be costly and dangerous. In many states, laws are evolving to address the consequences of making false reports, particularly when the reports lead to significant disruption or harm. The case in Port Orange could spark changes in how the legal system treats online pranks that involve law enforcement. Some legal experts argue that the consequences for minors involved in such pranks should be more severe, given the potential harm they cause to public resources and safety. However, others advocate for a more balanced approach that focuses on education and rehabilitation. Given the growing frequency of such hoaxes, this case has become part of a larger conversation about the responsibility of digital platforms to monitor the content they promote. Should platforms that glorify extreme pranks or dangerous stunts be held accountable when such actions spill over into the real world? Experts argue that the law may need to adapt in order to address the increasingly complex relationship between online behavior and real-world consequences. Legal precedents set by this case could help define how future cases involving false reports are handled, especially when it comes to the responsibility of minors in today's digital-first world. Impact of technology on youth behavior. This incident is also a reflection of the digital divide facing today's youth. With children spending more time online than ever before, they are exposed to a constant barrage of information, some of which may be damaging or misleading. The internet offers a platform for creativity and expression, but it also encourages behaviors that can lead to serious consequences. Social media platforms often amplify sensational content, glorifying pranks that involve deception, risk, or disruption. The desire for viral fame can push children to test boundaries, unaware of the potential dangers. This case highlights the importance of teaching kids about the long-term consequences of their actions in the digital age, where the lines between reality and performance are increasingly blurred. As technology continues to play a larger role in the lives of young people, the challenge becomes not just about teaching digital literacy, but fostering responsible use of platforms. The younger generation must be taught that every action, whether it is online or offline, carries consequences that can impact not only themselves but their community as well. This event serves as a wake-up call for parents, educators, and lawmakers to engage in a broader conversation about the ethical implications of a digital-first world. By doing so, society can hope to equip the next generation with the tools they need to navigate an increasingly complex media landscape responsibly. A wake-up call. The 11-year-old fake kidnapping call serves as a sobering reminder of how easily pranks can spiral out of control, particularly in the age of social media. It underscores the need for deeper conversations about digital culture, youth behavior, and the consequences of spreading misinformation.
Hopefully her little friends and other parents would be like, oh my God, this isn't funny.
Now, the sheriff here, Mike Chitwood, again, taking this very seriously, so much so that he is setting up a series of community meetings to try to put the
In a world where everything is interconnected, a single lie can unravel a community, disrupt lives, and lead to profound consequences. As for the 11-year-old, her actions will undoubtedly follow her for years to come. While she may not have fully understood the gravity of her hoax at the time, she now has a powerful lesson in the importance of honesty, responsibility, and the consequences of actions that, in the digital age, can quickly go viral. This case stands as a poignant reminder that while technology opens up a world of possibilities,
So there was a text message from someone saying they were behind a car. Their friend was kidnapped from a Chick-fil-A in Palm Coast, and they were on the interstate behind the car.
Everything on your phone is telling me that you made a phone call to 911.
But I didn't talk.
Because you did something stupid.
I'm not going to the car!
Here, Amanda. Here, stop. Hey. Stop.
it also comes with a tremendous responsibility to use it wisely and with integrity. If you found this story informative and want to stay updated on more in-depth analysis like this, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.